In an isolated corner of a small kingdom, there lived a beautiful girl. Her clothes were torn, and her face was smudged, but it couldn't hide her charm. She was also very kind and humble. She worked the hardest on the farm and rarely had a moment to herself. No one called her by any other name than Cinderella. She lived on the farm with her stepmother and 2 stepsisters, all of whom were very unkind to Cinderella, subjecting her to various hardships. One day, news spread that there would be a grand celebration at the palace, a royal ball where a young and handsome prince was to choose his bride. Cinderella's stepsisters immediately began preparing, having expensive dresses made and buying jewelry. Cinderella had no dress and no money to get one. Besides, her stepmother ordered her to stay at home and work. On the day of the ball, her stepsisters dressed up and decorated themselves while Cinderella swept the house, deeply saddened that she couldn't attend. After her stepsisters and stepmother left for the ball, poor Cinderella burst into tears. At that moment, her fairy godmother appeared before her. She consoled Cinderella, caressed her, and then elegantly waved her magic wand. A pumpkin growing in the garden of the house turned into a carriage, and a pair of mice transformed into fine white horses to pull the carriage. The fairy godmother waved her wand once more, and Cinderella turned into a princess, wearing magnificent garments. Her shabby slippers were magically transformed into sparkling shoes adorned with gemstones. The fairy godmother then told her that the magic would end at the stroke of midnight. And so, Cinderella was able to go to the ball. When she entered the palace, everyone was captivated by her beauty. Her stepsisters couldn't even recognize her in her clean, luxurious attire. The prince was immediately enchanted by her and asked her to dance. During the dance, he discovered that Cinderella was not only beautiful but also kind and clever. In that moment, he fell in love with her and took her to his royal parents, declaring his wish to marry her. However, Cinderella noticed that midnight was approaching, remembered her fairy godmother's words, and hurriedly left the ballroom. The prince chased after her but couldn't catch her. As he ran down the palace stairs, one of Cinderella's slippers slipped off her foot. She had to keep running. Although the prince reached the bottom of the staircase, Cinderella was nowhere to be seen. But he found the lost slipper on the stairs. The slipper was very small, and the prince immediately thought that he could find the girl who would fit into it. Whoever could wear the tiny slipper would become his bride. The following morning, the prince and his servants traveled to every corner of the kingdom to find the girl who could wear the slipper. All day, they had no luck until they arrived at the farm where Cinderella lived with her stepmother and stepsisters. Her stepsisters tried to squeeze their feet into the slipper at all costs, but it was simply too small. Finally, it was Cinderella's turn. She slipped effortlessly into the slipper because it was meant to be hers. Her stepsisters were furious, but the happy prince took Cinderella to his palace, and soon a grand and joyous wedding was celebrated. For many years, she was remembered throughout the kingdom. The prince and Cinderella lived happily together, had many children, and their castle was always filled with laughter and joy.